Hello and welcome to a brand new Arseblog Arsecast right here on arseblog.com. How are you? Hope you're well. Thank you very much indeed, as always, for being here. As you can hear from my voice, the couple of days in Lisbon have taken a little bit of a toll, but was it worth it? You bet your fucking arse it was worth it to see Arsenal go there and do that. Boy, that was a lot of fun. I think maybe my worst European away experience was Barcelona in 2016, thereabouts. It was pissing rain. They made us walk over a rickety bridge to get into the ground. It was essentially a miracle that nobody got badly injured walking over this thing. It was unbelievable. And we got beaten 3-1. It never stopped raining. You're sitting there just drenched, and this was the complete antithesis of that. An amazing performance from Arsenal. A real privilege. I feel very lucky to have been there to see that and to share it with good friends and all the other Arsenal people who were around. Just a brilliant night of European football and an amazing time in what is a brilliant city. I'd never been to Lisbon before. I will be going back to Lisbon at some point in the future. I mean, it's just a beautiful place. The food is amazing. The drinks are amazing. I thought the people were incredible, just so friendly and welcoming. So all in all, a very pleasing couple of days. And look, after we won 5-1, I know a lot of people would have been keen to relive that game straight away the next day. And I will admit to you, there was a moment where I felt slightly bad at not bringing my recording equipment and not doing a podcast immediately the day after. But then that moment passed and I was sitting in the sunshine in Lisbon having a nice glass of wine. I didn't feel that guilty about it. Sorry. But we're here now, and hopefully you found some. Look, there's no shortage of Arsenal content out there. I'm sure you have found some podcasts or something to fill the gap. But when you go and win a game like that, when you win 5-1 away from home against a team that haven't lost at home for however long it was, who beat Man City 4-1 just a few weeks ago, there's always room for a little bit more. For our American friends out there who are celebrating Thanksgiving today, I hope you all have a great day. But it's like having your big dinner, then having the dessert, and then sitting there, you're full as anything, but you know, it was good. So you can squeeze a bit more in, whether it's a turkey sandwich or another slice of, I don't know what you have for dessert on Thanksgiving. Pie of some kind? That sounds about right. Another slice of pie. This is another slice of Sporting 1, Arsenal 5. Who put the ball in the Sporting net? Half our fucking team did. That's what the song said. And who am I to doubt a song in any way, shape or form? Nobody. That's who. So look, let's do it. Let's go back in time. Let's go back to Tuesday night and to a result I don't think that anybody saw coming in terms of how comprehensive it was. I was like quite confident we could go there and win, but I didn't think it would be 5-1. What a result, what a performance. And with me to talk about it is Phil Costa. Hello, Phil.
Hello, Andrew. How much of your bloodstream is currently margaritas and pastel de natas? On a rough percentage.
78%, thereabouts, I would say.
Wow, that's high.
Well, I mean, think about the fact that I've been traveling all day and have only had one pastel de nata today and no margaritas today. It was probably a lot higher last night when I was going to bed, you know. But
the rest has been dropped down. The rest is Superboc, actually.
Yeah, there was
Sagres.
There was some of that. There was some very nice white wine as well. So yeah, it was all in all a very enjoyable trip to Lisbon. Football was good. The not football was good. So I'm not going to complain. As I said a couple of moments ago in the little intro, my voice is, you know, a bit scratchy, but that is par for the course, and I will do my best not to make any kind of coughing sounds during this. Mute myself while I let you talk for a bit. I think that's probably the right way to do it.
Look, you're an experienced man, and you know where the mute button is. The issue is putting it back on. Where many have tried and failed, but I'm sure we can get through in one piece.
Yes, let's not be subtweeting. Can you call it that when you're talking out loud, Paul? You know, but then again, Why not? Why not? This is interesting, because we're coming at this from two very different angles and perspectives. One of the things I don't do a great deal of before a game is I don't like to drink a lot before a game because I want to experience it and remember it, and that's something I'm very glad of the other night. I had a couple of beers before the game, but that was it. I saved my celebrations until afterwards. But, being in the ground and you're caught up with the live action, there are no screens inside the sporting ground, so you don't get any replays. So I spent this morning at the airport watching the game again. I downloaded the game and watched it again. It was interesting to me just a couple of minutes ago when I went to look at the stats, and I noticed that Sporting had 19 shots to Arsenal's. I think it was maybe 13, if I can get the stats up here. And I found that kind of like, what? Really? It did not feel like that from inside the ground. When you were watching it on TV, did it feel like that? I know loads of the shots just went fucking flying over the bar, so maybe it's just easy to discount them. But it didn't feel like they were a team that posed, I'm not even going to say that it was threat, but got into that many positions to have shots on goal in the first place.
No, not at all. I think each of their shots probably needed to be accompanied by a whop whop every time they just sort of rolled into David Raya. Definitely not in the first half, that's for sure, because we were dominant, brilliant. That was probably the best I've seen Arsenal play this season, to be honest, in that first half.
Yeah, I'd agree.
So it definitely did not feel that Sporting had close to 20 shots or whatever it was you just said. Now, I have to admit, I haven't looked at the stats, but just based on what my eyes told me, we were always in control and never really put under the cosh, apart from maybe 5 or 10 minutes in that second half. But even then, I think they were low quality chances. It was more just the players and the Sporting fans waking up a bit after being put into submission for what was 45 very good minutes from Arsenal.
Amazing. Sometimes you can see from the way a team starts a game, the level of intent that's there, and how, this sort of epitomized what Mikel Arteta said, or says he always wants from his team, doesn't he? The control, playing the game in the opposition half, dealing with whatever they have to offer from an attacking perspective. And I think, from front to back, I think Arsenal collectively and individually were really, really good. But obviously starting the game and just pinning them back straight away. There was like an early cross which just hacked away, I think, and there was a couple of moments where we threatened to get in behind or threatened to cause them problems in their box, but it was just that silky play, kind of what we saw against Forest at the weekend, that ability to keep the ball in and around the opposition box, make the passes, make the movements, and paid off obviously very early with that first goal.
Yeah, I honestly thought this was our best European performance under Mikel Arteta. Taking opposition, their recent form, being away from home, all into account. But like you said, the first half, I was so impressed with how we just got our foot on their necks and just increased the force with each passing minute. We were suffocating them. And they tried to be physical as well. Saka took a few kicks early on. Yeah. So they kind of set out their stall very quickly, but our movement, our passing, our strength in the duel was too much for them. And already when we scored that first goal, you kind of got the feeling that it could be a sort of opening the floodgates moment, because we were just dominant. And I'm sure we'll get into the right side or the dynamic of the right side a bit later on in the podcast, but it's no surprise that the goal came from that side, with Jurrien Timber obviously putting in a lovely ball in for Gabriel Martinelli. But that whole move just sort of illustrated the differences between Arsenal and Sporting from basically the first whistle, and I thought it was a really nicely worked goal.
No, I agree. I think Havertz would have scored it if he hadn't been pulled back.
That was a penalty for sure. If Martinelli wasn't on the end of that.
Yeah. I only noticed that when I watched the game back. I didn't see it in real time because it was at the other end of the stadium. But it is a nice ball. It's a nice ball from Rice, I think, to Timber. Timber stays onside, rolls it across. Like I said, I think Havertz would score if he hadn't been pulled back. Martinelli is there to put it in the back of the net, 1-0. And, you know, look, it's not counterintuitive, but it's obvious to say that an early goal makes a big difference. You can start a game and dominate and play in their half, but if you don't get the end product, you know, I think what was really interesting about this game was Sporting's record at home. You know, for me, I was confident that we could go and win the game. People were asking for score predictions, and I was like 2-1 or 2-0 or something. We can go and win that game. But you have to respect the record that they've had at home. You have to respect the fact that a few weeks ago, and I know what's happening at Manchester City maybe doesn't give the perfect view of that win, but if you beat Man City 4-1, you kind of have to respect that opposition, apart from Tottenham, obviously. That was 4-0, so it's not beating Man City. So I'm not saying you have to respect every opposition who score 4 against Manchester City, but that was there. You know, that was part of the narrative, the pre-game discussions, if you like, about how strong they have been at home. And I know it's the Portuguese league, but, you know, they've been good in Europe. They were second in the table before this game. You know, so they've been in good form, and they've been a difficult team to beat. But there was none of that in the way that Arsenal approached this game, both in terms of team selection, which we didn't really mention. You know, some players who didn't play at the weekend were brought back in, and the performance and the way we just tried to get on top of them as early as we did.
Yeah, look, obviously they are going through some transition with Ruben Amorim leaving and Joao Pereira coming in. But prior to Tuesday, this was a team who are unbeaten all season and hadn't lost at home in over a year. So this was an incredible result based on that. And also in the league this season, they've won each of their 11 games. They scored 39 goals and conceded just 5. So obviously the managerial change is something to consider. It's a big caveat, but also they're a serious team. And even though we beat Forest last weekend, there was still some pressure riding on this game because of our poor away record in Europe. So, you know, we won just one of our last 8 on the continent, none of our last 6. And our last away goal was scored by Eddie Nketiah against PSV, obviously one year ago. So there was a lot of narrative around this game, but you could just see, I think Arsenal in particular, I watch a lot of other teams, obviously, but not in as much detail. But what I found with this Arsenal team under Mikel Arteta is that you can tell how the games are going to go very quickly based on their first 5 or 10 minutes, how they're moving the ball, first touches, weight of pass, if they win their first couple of duels. And this game for me was just like, I took a few minutes just to analyze everything, and I could see us moving the ball crisply. We were strong in the tackle. We looked very organised. Our distances on the pitch were good, and Sporting didn't have a chance. They didn't have a clue. I mean, I felt so sorry for that poor left back or that left wing back. I think his name was Maxi Araujo, who was just getting ragdolled by Bukayo Saka and Martin Odegaard. It reminded me of that game against Sevilla last year, where their right back was just getting torn to shreds by Gabriel Martinelli. Yeah. You know, time and time again, Saka was picking up the ball. Odegaard was playing him in behind. Timber was joining the overlap as well. And it was just every time we looked dangerous. We looked like we were going to score. And as I said, the early goal kind of set the tone for what the rest of the half was, which was domination. Sporting couldn't sustain any possession. You know, even when they did win the ball back off us, they were just booting it clear, and then we were going again. And they didn't really know how to handle our overloads on the right-hand side. I thought we were excellent in central areas as well, whether that's Saliba and Gabriel. So it was just pure domination. And as I said, I thought you could see very early on that this Arsenal team meant business on Tuesday night.
Yeah, I didn't feel sorry at all for any of their players. I was too busy having
being
fun.
Political.
Yeah, that's fair enough. That's fair enough. There was a nice moment in the stands when we scored the second goal, there was a guy who had, come into the row. He was selling bottles of water, and a couple of the lads behind us were buying, bottles of water. They were trying to find cash. The goal goes in. Everybody starts celebrating like crazy. And he just gets smothered into this sort of mass of Arsenal fans who are like, ah! And he just sort of goes, I'm a Benfica fan.
No, of us.
Yeah, kind of. But he was a Benfica fan, so he was obviously enjoying the fact that Arsenal scored a second goal. What a lovely goal it is too. Again, we're talking about the control that we have in the opposition half. Partey's ball to Saka. Saka's run is great. Partey's pass over the top to Saka is brilliant. He gets there before the goalkeeper, pokes it through the keeper's legs, and Havertz is there to poke it home from close range. Just one of those that looks really simple, but obviously isn't.
No, it wasn't simple at all. But again, it just shows the kind of the level of rotation and movement we were operating with on the night. I found Thomas Partey very good in the middle of the park. Actually, he just seems to be confident in his body at the moment in terms of how he can move, where he's putting the passes, turning away from pressure. And that foil, I'd put Gabriel and Saliba into that as well. That kind of trio of Partey, Gabriel, Saliba. They were just making sure that whenever Sporting had a chance to regroup, that they couldn't, basically. And I think that second goal comes from that. They try to push out. Their defensive line is all over the place. Saka realises that space is in behind. He makes a quick dart. The goalie sort of makes his decision by coming out and steaming out a bit. Maybe if he'd stayed in his goal, that would have been a harder opportunity to execute. But Saka gets there first. It's an easy goal for Havertz. And yeah, we just looked very confident. I don't know what it was. Obviously, the return of Odegaard is huge. But in general, I think resting a few of these guys on the weekend was very sensible from Arteta, very intelligent. It obviously shows that he was maybe thinking with the week ahead as opposed to just that game against Forest as well. So when we've got these guys at top form, full fitness, we're a match for anybody. And unfortunately, in the last 2 months, I don't think we've been able to see that enough for various reasons.
You mentioned people like Thomas Partey, who I thought was excellent. Gabriel, Saliba, the way they dealt with whatever Sporting had when they came forward. Obviously, there was a lot of discussion about Victor Gyökeres, if that's the right way to pronounce his name. You can't have a discussion about Arsenal needing a forward without his name popping up right now. So there was that element to, the worry you might have before a game like this, where our away record in Europe hasn't been brilliant. They've been strong at home. He's obviously a very in-form guy, and not just in the Portuguese league. I think he's got 5 goals, or had 5 goals from 4 Champions League games before this one. Just touching on him for a moment and how we dealt with him. I don't think he got a particularly great service from those around him, but that in part is due to how well we played in those congested areas when they did get into our half. They'll probably be slightly low down the list when you talk about the players who really shone, but I was really impressed with Calafiori and Timber on the night. The anticipation that they had when Sporting tried to get down those channels, or down the outside channels in particular, just they had nothing. That meant Gyökeres was forced wide. It was easy for Saliba to deal with him. I think he clumped one out of play at one point because Gabriel was right up his arse. I'm not saying he's scared of him, but that kind of thing. They dealt with him really, really well. And as somebody who's such a focal point to their attack, when you nullify him, there's a bigger onus on those other players in the team to deliver or to try and give you some end product. And I'm not sure there's quite the same amount of quality behind him that can make up for that when he's kept that quiet.
Yeah, definitely. I've followed him for a few seasons now, Gyökeres, and I like him. I think he's talented and he could easily play at a high level. I'm sure he'll get a move this summer. But after bullying centre-backs every week for the last 18 months, coming up against Saliba and Gabriel will have been a shock to the system. They completely locked him up. And I don't even think he played that badly. Like you said, he was maybe starved of service. but kept himself honest. He was running the channels. He struck a couple from distance. But everything he tried was just getting pushed back with an emphatic nope. And even his celebration got mocked by the player who had limited him to nothing all game. And, I found it really interesting how he started on Saliba first.
Yeah.
But couldn't run him. And when he was dropping deep, Saliba was right there, snapping at his heels, snatching the ball, making sure he couldn't turn. Then he went over to Gabriel and found the exact same thing. He couldn't run him, was getting brushed aside, shoulder to shoulder. He got nothing from either of them. And there was one moment in particular in the first half where Gyökeres had isolated Gabriel down the left. But he completely read him. He let the ball run out into touch. And Saliba, who was halfway across the penalty area, put his arms up and celebrated that moment like a goal. And we know how well they played together, but little things like that really emphasize the strength of their partnership. And, we're just very lucky to have them. I thought they were absolutely outstanding, especially their work in the channels. Saliba, a couple of times, he sort of encouraged him. He was like, go on, you want to go for a run? Let's go for a run. And then he just gets his body across, minimal fuss, keeps it in possession by the touchline, finds Timber, and off we go again. So they were just so impressive. But yeah, I agree that the fullbacks coming back as well have given us another dimension, both defensively and offensively.
There were some fireworks in the first half as well. They didn't really show up on TV. You could hear them on TV.
Yeah, they referenced it, but they didn't show anything.
Yeah, they were sort of below us and to the left, and you could see them firing out like... I think they'll probably get in trouble for that, Sporting. I don't know if it was supposed to put us off in any way. There was maybe a bit of a smoke bomb was there as well, kind of green smoke that drifted across. Like if that was supposed to intimidate the Arsenal team or the Arsenal players in any way, it didn't really work at all. That first half was just so impressive in every way. You talked about Martin Odegaard a couple of minutes ago, and maybe we should talk about that right-hand side. What more can we say about the influence of this guy and what he does to how we play and what he seems to give everyone around him? Like he's a performance-enhancing drug of a player for the rest of the Arsenal team because everybody is kind of juiced up on the Odegism, if you like, and
God, that's not a nice image.
Everyone is kind of juiced up on what he transmits on the ball, off the ball, the security in possession, the way he skips away from people, all of it, But he was so crucial to what we did on Saturday against Forest, and he was so crucial to what we did against Sporting on Tuesday night. Having been out for such a prolonged period of time, the first real serious injury he's had as an Arsenal player. I know he had a bit of an injury in his loan spell, but as an Arsenal player and an Arsenal captain, that's the longest he's been out. To come back, someone asked me the other night, like, has he come back better, or did we just miss him so much that when he's back we remember what he was like? You know what I mean? Has he improved? Is it possible that he's better? Is this one of the best little spells of... It's hard to say, but I think there is something to the idea that he's out there making up for lost time in terms of how he's playing.
I probably prefer compound O to Erdigism, actually. But yeah, I think James made a really good point on his on the whistle video about Odegaard ripping up the rule book in terms of his return from injury and not needing any time at all before slotting back in and playing brilliantly again. It's quite incredible what he's been able to do. Arteta has spoken about him. I think he said there would be no other player that could have sort of recovered and done his rehab and come back like he has done. And I've often called him the technical reference point of our team, and a bit like Jorginho, Arteta's eyes and ears on the pitch. Time almost stands still when he's on the ball, like in one of those films where everything slows down and you can hear the protagonist's heartbeat before they make a game-winning shot or completing an almost impossible escape. Except he's still playing normally and everyone else is under his spell. It's just amazing that the respect and the time that he commands on the ball, the way he's able to shuffle away from pressure, his intelligence in finding those little pockets of space. his technique to be able to bounce those wall passes off people, his weight of pass, his vision. It's just incredible. I think he is. I mean, why not? Why can't he be better now than what he was before? It's just, what is he, 25 now?
Yeah.
25, 26. I think this should be the time where he could potentially find another gear or another level if it's there to be found. And you know that he's a serious professional. He takes his profession seriously. He's always in tip-top shape. Takes the responsibility of being captain very seriously. And we're just very lucky to have him representing us, and the way he's playing at the moment. Maybe there is a bit of the teams being better as well now, without the suspensions, without the injuries. Yeah. But I don't doubt for a second that him coming back will be transformative for us. And just the effect he's able to have on that right side in particular is incredible. Yeah. Those tight spaces, the trio, the triangle between him, Saka and Timber. I mean, he's someone else we can talk about because I thought he was outstanding on the day, actually. Yeah. Jurrien Timber. But just the way we move, just the way we flow with him in the team, we're a different outfit. We're a different outfit from what we've been seeing in the last couple of months. And it's no surprise that he's at the center of everything. Yeah, for sure. He turns 26 on the 17th of December. So there you go. I mean, he is over the hill. Yeah.
Obviously coming right into his prime years. And I think he will have been so frustrated because I think, with being captain, you have a sense of responsibility that goes above and beyond. I'm not saying the other players don't feel responsible. Of course they do. But I think when you are captain and you're sidelined, it must sting, even more when results don't go the way of your team. So he's back and making us tick and playing a huge role in what we do. And that first half was finished in very fine style. A corner, I think it was Diamonde, who had been booked earlier in the game and seemed rattled all the way through. I was watching that again because that happened maybe two or 3 minutes in. And from where I was watching up the far end, through the very thick net, by the way, that hangs in front of the pitch in the Sporting Stadium, like somebody explained to Sporting and other football, fine mesh. Think about a fine mesh, if you wouldn't mind. Just trying to fucking look through the thing. There was this incident between him and Havertz, and I thought the ref had, booked Havertz or sent Havertz off. I couldn't quite tell the colour of the card, but he gives him a dig in the back. So that was 2-3 minutes in. It was his hacked clearance that went behind for a corner. Declan Rice delivers a great ball, and there is no better man to attack a corner in the world than Gabriel. Not only does he time his run perfectly, I mean, it is the epitome of a thumping header. The only thing that could make that goal better is if he was 7 or 8 yards further out and he just loafed that ball into the net. But again, the delivery was excellent. The timing of the run, the header, just a brilliant goal. And I think no more or no less rather than Arsenal deserved based on that first half performance. Totally. I think all 3 of our goals were scored from inside the 6-yard box as well, which is very un-Arsenal. Wow, yeah. But there was a brilliant tweet actually from Michael Kashani, who posted a screenshot of his WhatsApp group, which said, Gabriel charging at the goalkeeper when a ball gets floated in feels like Henry breaking into space down the left-hand channel. Yeah. And it's just so true. There is a sense of inevitability to him, which is quite incredible. I mean, to be able to threaten so often as an individual. I know we do a lot of work as a team, and more often than not, we are excellent in terms of our routines, where we run from, grouping up at the back post, blocking people. It's all well rehearsed and excellent. Mm-hmm. But in terms of the individual aura that someone can possess, the way, again, I think it was that Araujo guy, the way he just brushes him aside is hilarious. He's like, what are you even doing here, you puny man? Get out of my way. You know, similar to what Carl Walker did when we played City away, when he was trying to, put him off with those little hand slaps. It's just like, what are you doing, mate? I'm going to be right on this ball and I'm going to power it into the net. And that's what he did. So a really
fun goal because, you know, who can beat a thumping header? Not many people, but it was just, like you said, that 45 minutes were sort of topped off by that third. That was the cherry on top of a very impressive first half, and we deserved it. We were absolutely brilliant. The crowd, from what it felt like on TV anyway, I don't know what it was like in the ground, but they were silent. And it was just professional, clinical. I thought our performance was great on a general level as well, and we were absolutely deserving of that 3-goal lead coming into half time.
Yeah, I mean they were silent. They were quiet. To be fair to them, they did perk up a bit early in the second half, helped obviously by an early goal from a corner, which when I looked at it again today, I was a little hit and miss about whether or not there might have been a foul or two in there on Arsenal defenders, but you know, they get the ball in the back of the net and then all of a sudden they woke up. Then they were loud. There was a good roar when they went in, and they started to try and influence the referee in a way, because Arsenal were in no hurry to do anything. Even Declan Rice, when he took that corner before half-time, they were getting a bit antsy about that, about the amount of time that it was taking. Of course, they get a goal back. They start to get excited, a little bit giddy. Ooh, maybe we can get another one. Maybe we can get back into this game. And I think in that sort of opening 10, 15 minutes of the second half, between the goal that they scored, I think they had a free kick that Gyökeres whacked over the bar. That was probably their best spell of the game. David Raya picked up a booking for time wasting because they were whistling all the time. Whistling. Even when Timber was taking throw-ins on the other side. I really enjoyed the moment where the Sporting player went to give the ball to Timber and he just sort of let it drop and then was like, where's the ball? Yeah.
What have you just given me?
Yeah. I enjoyed that, you know, but it wasn't really a spell of dominance, or it wasn't as if we were under a great deal of pressure. They got a bit of wind in their sails, but then they hit the doldrums again.
I think that's normal and to be expected. You know, the early goal gave them something to cling on to. As you said, the fans get behind the team, the players find an extra 5 or 10%. And I think Arsenal realised in that moment there was a need to maybe slow the game down a bit. Obviously, not to the extent that David Raya used or took, obviously, but with that yellow card and Timber as well, there were a few throw-ins that really took the piss, which maybe had the opposite effect of what we wanted, because it kind of got everyone rattled up even more. But I never really feared for Arsenal because, as I said earlier, even in that spell, Sporting were never really threatening or, you know, putting together serious waves of pressure and possession. So I trust Arsenal to be able to defend in those moments. Maybe if a couple of difficult crosses come in or set pieces, I trust us to deal with them. Their goal felt like a bit of an anomaly in that sense. I think Calafiori lost Inacio, but he got blocked by maybe an Arsenal player. I'm not sure. And then it bobbled in off Havertz. But overall, to be able to limit this team who are, let's be honest, free scoring to very little was seriously impressive. And I think we did settle, but then the fourth goal just kind of put everything to bed and said, well, that's it now for the rest of the 20 minutes. Nothing much is going to happen.
Yeah.
And we managed it from there on in.
So the fourth goal came about after, you know, we won the ball high up the pitch. It's quite funny. Who's the guy? Is it Hjulmand?
Yep.
Sorry, to my Danish.
He is Danish. Yep.
My Danish friends for butchering his name. But you know, Odegaard goes on a run. But when we win the ball, he stands there and he starts complaining to the referee. If he actually just sort of played the whistle, he could have got back and maybe blocked Odegaard off, got into the box. I think your man Diomande is very lucky not to get a second yellow card there.
Don't know how that wasn't a red card.
He is
like the most obvious second yellow you will see.
He is nowhere near the ball. Doesn't even, like, I don't even know how he has, or any of the Sporting players have the temerity to appeal in that situation, because it's just the most obvious foul that you could possibly see. Ref sees it straight away, to his credit, points to the spot. But I'm surprised that wasn't a second yellow card there.
Me too. And like you said, he was on the edge all game. His head was gone. And this is a talented young player. He was excellent when Sporting beat us in the Europa League at the Emirates. But for some reason, I don't know whether the pressure just got to him on the night, but he was all over the place. And the challenge is an awful one. Even technically speaking, as a defender, he is in the wrong position. His tackling technique is wrong. So everything there is just like wrong, bad. And that kind of ended the game. I mean, like you said, I don't know what he was complaining about to the referee. There was no basis for anything close to a complaint. He just went straight through the back of Odegaard, kicked his Achilles. It's a penalty all day long.
Yeah.
And it was just the thing that we needed to kind of, as I said before, put the game to bed.
There was a bit of concern, I have to say, in the stands when Odegaard stayed down and everyone was like, oh really? He's not done his ankle again, please no. But I think it was just studs to the back of the Achilles. It's very painful. Bukayo Saka is a penalty taker. I remember having a conversation with James, I don't know how long ago, a little while ago anyway, on the Arsecast Extra, and he was like, when Saka steps up to take a penalty, I'm not really that confident, or not as confident as I would like to be. I would say now he's a lot more confident in what Bukayo Saka can do from the spot. And like, there's literally no way to save that. You can't save that penalty. It's perfect. Low, down to the goalkeeper's, I presume his wrong side, if he's right-footed, left-handed, who knows. Anyway, down to the goalkeeper's left, into the side netting. Just a perfect penalty.
Brilliant. I mean, that is, to any young kids watching penalty taking or how to take a penalty, that's how you do it.
Yeah.
It was precision personified, hard, low, into the corner. They never save them. Goalkeepers cannot save shots like that unless they are literally standing in that corner. It's impossible. The way he whipped it away, it was just about the side netting, as much side netting as you can get, to be honest. I know what James means. He can look a little bit unorthodox sometimes in terms of the way he strikes the ball. But with Saka, I feel like a lot of our worries and our anxieties are projected onto him purely because we don't want to see him miss a penalty again. And I think the penalties that he has missed in his career, obviously the one against Italy in the final, but also that one against West Ham, have been quite costly. So we don't want that to happen, first of all, to him again, and we don't want it to happen to us again. So I get it from his side, but also we've seen enough of a sample size from Saka now to know that he's pretty decent, I would say, at penalties and always improving. I don't know about you, but I've seen this season a change in Saka in terms of his personality, how he's willing to project himself on the pitch, his standing on the pitch. I feel like he knows that he's the guy now. And not only knowing it, but welcoming it. I've seen it in a few of his celebrations, in how he speaks after the game. It feels like that he knows that he's the guy. I don't know if that was just me or if you've noticed that.
I know what you mean. I think obviously there's a maturity, as you get a bit older and you become a bit more self-confident. I can trace that back almost to, in my mind, what's an exact moment of that. I can't remember the game or the opposition, but I remember remarking on it at the time. Remember that period where he was getting kicked a lot? Could have been a game against West Ham. I don't really remember. But I remember the moment in a game where he got kicked and then he just, basically it was like a switch went and he was like, fuck this. I'm not taking this anymore. I'm going to give a bit back. And I think from there, that sort of self-confidence has grown. I know exactly what you mean. The quality and the consistency of his end product means that he is the man. He is the guy. He knows he's one of the best players on the pitch. He knows he's one of the best players in the world right now. And I think there's an inevitability about him doing something that will damage the opposition in almost every game that he plays in. He got a goal and an assist in this game. I think he's 9 or 10 assists this season already, you know. But I think it is a maturity thing. He's 23 now. Like, why wouldn't he feel like he can do like the moment in the second half where he left that defender like on his arse, just skidding off the pitch. Just brilliant. I love that. You know, he wants to hurt the opposition at every possible moment that he can. And then even when, you know, he does get played that ball where, you know, we're looking for the out ball comes to him, to his feet, he's on the touchline. He's either got the strength to hold off the opposition, or he's going to win a free kick. One or the other. There's just such security in what he does these days, and he's just such an amazing player to watch. We're very lucky, not lucky to have him, but lucky that our academy has produced such an incredible talent.
Yeah, and there was one moment as well, and I think it was the first half, maybe towards the end of the first half, where David Raya claimed a corner and then just launched the ball forward to him. And I think it was the midfielder tracking him back, Morita, and he didn't want to go anywhere near him. It was like, oh God, do I press? Do I stay? And I'm going to give him a yard or two. And Saka was just like, okay. And then he cut inside and shot. It went on target. It wasn't the best shot in the world, but you can see that people and players are scared because he's just such a rounded threat in terms of his technique, his control, his physicality. I thought he was really good again. And it's not... Again, just to touch on the right side, this shouldn't be news to anybody, but it's fantastic. It's quite funny how, as a fan base, we've spent months trying to break down this uncrackable equation we call our left-hand side, and then our right-hand side is just Odegaard and Saka go brr. And I saw a graphic that showed 65% of our attacks against Sporting came down the right side, which is significant. But I know that it's entirely by design, obviously, because especially when Martinelli plays, we don't need or want him involved in the build-up. We want him attacking dangerous space in the penalty area, and that's actually how the first goal came about. But it is quite amazing to watch him and Odegaard in full flow, and Timber as well coming in to join the party. I mean, we can talk a bit about him if you want, because I thought he was brilliant.
I mean, let's just to sort of look at the stats a little bit. Martinelli had 19 touches in the period of the game that he was on. Saka finished the game with 66 touches of the ball. So that'll tell you how weighted we were towards that side. Odegaard, 83 touches of the ball. Only Timber had more with 84, and he obviously played a part in that fifth goal because he just picked the ball up and drove at the opposition. I mean, what's your standout from him? I mean, he had 3 key passes on the night. Were you far more impressed with what he did going forward than defensively, or was this a really sort of solid all-round performance for you?
Yeah, I just thought it was a really solid performance. And also in the context of Arsenal this season, we've had to chop and change so much in both fullback positions, even over the last year, not just at this season. And now with Ben White out for the foreseeable future, it's great to have players of this quality and his quality fit and ready to impact games, because he's got big shoes to fill. But as you said there, created more chances than any other Arsenal player with 3, completed more passes than any other Arsenal player with 60, more touches than any other Arsenal player, 84. There's this intensity and tenacity to his game that almost feels contagious in both offensive and defensive situations, and his ability to carry the ball and create separation over the first 5 or 10 yards is so useful and crucial. But just the way he plays, he's got that dog in him. You know, he's just physical, aggressive. Yeah. He's so competitive. And I love those body feint step over moves that he's got that almost come out of his performances 2 or 3 times a game. I mean, he did a couple in this game that even sent me to the shops, and I'm sitting in my living room. So I'm just sad that we were robbed of him last season, because if you list everything you want from a modern defender, he has it. And I was just really impressed with how quickly he seems to have settled into that right-sided pod.
Yeah.
And it's a shame that we don't really have another option at right back, because we do need to manage him a bit carefully.
I mean, maybe a knock-on effect of him being out last season is the fact that Ben White is out now.
Yes.
Because Ben White has basically played himself through the pain and played himself into hospital and under the surgeon's knife because we needed him so much. So that's another sort of aspect of this discussion. It would have been amazing to have him last season. Maybe it saves us Ben White now, so it is a tricky situation in that he is going to have to manage him as well as he can, but he's just a lot of fun to watch, isn't he, Timber?
Super fun. And it's not a huge surprise, because I scouted him quite a bit when we signed him, obviously for the article on Arseblog and the new player pod. But he just plays football like you do when you're 7 years old, and he never seems to have grown out of it. And I think there's a wonderful kind of refreshing feel to that, because a lot of players now can feel robotic, but he's just like all power, all running all the time. And he's been great.
Yeah. I think another interesting aspect of this game is what we got from the players who came off the bench as well. Declan Rice, probably not 100% fit still, and we're able to bring on Mikel Merino. It's Merino's shot from the edge of the box, I think, that leads to the Trossard goal. Trossard obviously comes off the bench, scores a goal. He'll do that another couple of times. He'll start starting again, and we'll have that loop. But Merino coming on was great. I thought he was good. Trossard scored a goal. I thought Zinchenko was good when he came on. Played a couple of really nice passes over the top. We have Ethan Nwaneri coming on for Martin Odegaard and making an impact in this game. And I think, there's been so much discussion of Nwaneri, and I don't really want to go down that road again, but I do think that as this season goes on, we might see, like, he came on at 77 minutes? I think it was thereabouts. Yeah. 77 minutes. He comes on for Martin Odegaard. Game is won at that point. But as the season goes on, maybe that becomes 70 minutes, or maybe it becomes 65 minutes. If you're in a position where you can rest Martin Odegaard because you've got yourself into a 4-1 lead or a 5-1 lead, you can give 25 minutes with some assurance to Nwaneri, because I think each one of these little cameos would give you more confidence. If you're Mikel Arteta, it will give you more confidence that he can come on and do a job, and do not the same job as Martin Odegaard, but certainly not be a weak link in any way in that midfield.
Well, he certainly doesn't look like a weak link now, or even whenever he's come on.
No, I know. I that's not necessarily what I was suggesting. I just think the caution that a manager might have, with a young player is obvious. But I just, I feel like every week we're going to see more and more minutes for him.
Really natural. I love the way he moves with the ball and wants to welcome the ball in any situation. As well, it might not even be about resting Odegaard. You actually mentioned this to me maybe a month ago, 6 weeks ago, that he could come on and play with Odegaard. So if we're chasing a goal or needing something else in the final third, he's absolutely capable to come on and do that and make an effect. So I just think this international break was helpful. And I won't really say that about international football usually, because I think more often than not they can hinder you in terms of killing momentum. Players get injured away, from their clubs. It takes time away from the training ground. But overall, I think this was a useful break for us. We kept a lot of players back. As well, the Forest game was a continuation of that. We managed people's minutes and rotated the squad very well. And I think we're going to need everybody fit or as close to full fitness as possible, because the fixture list doesn't stop now for 4 months. So it is non-stop, really.
Do you think this has been a good week in terms of the squad? Not just the team, but a good week in terms of the squad and Arteta's use of the squad, because he did make a couple of changes for the Forest game that we weren't expecting. He did start some of those guys again in this game, but then was able to change things around from the bench to good effect. That, we're looking at this as doing what people have wanted him to do, which is use the depth of the squad as much as possible, for all the reasons that we know. A, you want to see the players, you want to see them have a chance, but also it gives you more confidence if and when you do need or are forced into changes, that a player who has been used a bit can get to the level.
I think so. Look, there's no way you can honestly tell yourself that if you want to compete for the Premier League, Champions League, FA Cup, and even the League Cup, you can use the same 13 players across 9 months. It's just impossible. Not possible. And I think the Forest game, obviously, maybe people will have reservations about the opposition, although I think Forest have been largely very good this season. We found a few people. We found Jorginho again. We found Jesus. And it's important. Obviously, Mikel Merino, his integration is slowly looking a bit more natural as well, a bit more comfortable. We need everybody. And it's why I don't really understand sometimes the reaction to some of the players playing, whether it's Sterling, Jesus, coming on. Obviously, they haven't had the best start to the season, but we need them. And getting the occasional 10, 15 minutes into their legs, or even up to 60, 90. It's very important, because there's no way you can compete on all fronts with the game as physically demanding as it is now with the same 12 or 13 players. So it was a welcome thing to have them in and around the team since we came back.
Yeah, Sterling was going to come on. He was standing on the sideline.
I know, I felt so sorry for him.
I know, there was a moment I was going, what's happening here? Why is Sterling? He's gone to sit down again. And one of the coaches came over and he sat down, and I don't know if they showed it on TV or not, but one of the coaches came over and sort of gave him a high five and look, we've got to take Gabriel off and put Kivior on, so you're going to have to sit down. So it was a bit unfortunate for him, because it might have been a nice few minutes to give him, but obviously we needed Kivior for Gabriel, and fingers crossed there's nothing too serious about that for Gabriel as we go into this busy schedule. But overall, unless there's another takeaway, I've got a question for you, but do you have anything else that you want to take away from the game, or the performance, or the individuals, collective?
Not really. I just think this has to be the start of a run, is what I feel now, because it's been too stop-start this season for various reasons. Okay, some in our control, some very much out of our control. But look at the momentum Liverpool are carrying now. Just as an example, I'm not saying they'll be able to do that for the whole season, but in football, momentum is a hell of a drug. And when you get 1 or 2 wins, that can quickly turn into 3 or 4, and that very quickly turns into 5 or 6, and then it's 10, and then it could be 12. So this needs to be the moment where, hopefully, with everybody back and fit and firing, we can use the next month, the next 6 weeks as a real target to say this needs to be 10 wins.
Sure.
Because we've got a lot of ground to make up in the league, that's for sure.
Yeah. So I was going to ask just about what this result says about this Arsenal team. And look, we've been hit and miss in Europe, it's fair to say. And I think Arteta said afterwards, this was a statement win. It is the kind of win, I think, that does slightly change the perception of you. Because if you go there, and our record in Portugal has not always been great either, you go there, you draw, it's like, it's not a bad result. If you win 1-0, yeah, it's good, but 1-0, but 5-1, and to play as well as we did, and to play as well as we did against that opposition who haven't lost at home for all that time, it does feel like one of those results that just sort of slightly changes the perception of the team and the squad when other teams are considering Arsenal or a potential fixture against Arsenal. And hopefully it's the sort of result and performance that instills a confidence within the players themselves that they can go and do this. And it's not just one good night, because it was a great night and it was a brilliant performance and a brilliant result, but you want to do it again. You want to do that again next time and next time, So I think there are things that we can take away from this above just the sheer enjoyment of going and seeing us clatter a team fucking 5-1.
I think there's an Amy Lawrence phrase that could fit this this little segment very nicely. But yeah, I think there is a mental barrier for this team to overcome. Maybe, obviously, 2024 was a bit of a disaster for us in the Champions League. lost against Porto, lost against Bayern, drew at Atalanta, lost against Inter, all without scoring, by the way. So naturally, as those runs develop, as those sort of historic run of results develop, you start to doubt yourself. And obviously we need to consider as well that this is not a team that is super experienced at this level as well. I know we've competed very closely for the Premier League now for 2 seasons, more or less. But in Europe, we're very inexperienced. We've got a lot of young players who are finding their way into this style of football, how you manage games. It's all very different. But this is emphatic. 5-1 away at Sporting is an emphatic win. We're well placed now for the rest of the... Is it a group phase? I don't know how to say it. Group phase, I guess. Obviously a couple of home games against Monaco, Dinamo Zagreb, Girona away, who have struggled. So you'd look at those fixtures and think, those should be wins. As I said before, it's another marker, another statement in what needs to be a run of wins now. Across all competitions, we need to start going. We need to start motoring, because we don't really have much more margin for error, and we can't wait around. We can't wait around for teams. I think Liverpool showed us, especially last night, that they're going to keep going. Who knows what's going to happen to City, but I'm reluctant to say anything, because I know that after January they can win 15 games in a row before we even get to April. So we need to be focused on us and ourselves, and how to do that is just to keep winning, just keep winning. So if this is the game that can kind of get us moving in the right direction, I'm all for it. And I think it could be that, but also just the general level of performance and how we were able to put our stamp on the game in a difficult environment should be super encouraging. I think Mikel Arteta will be very, very happy with how his team performed on the night. I
know a lot can change quite quickly in this table. Arsenal are currently 7th. There's a host of teams on 10 points, a group of teams on 9, a few teams on 8 and 7. When you look at this table now and you see Real Madrid in 24th and Paris Saint-Germain in 25th, it's kind of weird and difficult to get your head around in terms of what they're going to have to produce in their final few games. But I think it is important for us as well to try as much as possible not to have those 2 extra games. Is it in January or February? I can't remember exactly when they are. But if you don't finish in that top 8, you've got 2 more games. Good for gate receipts, not so good for the legs, particularly if we go a bit further in the EFL Cup. And then you're looking at a 2-legged semi-final, perhaps, which is absurd in this day and age that it's a 2-legged semi-final in the EFL Cup. It just doesn't make any sense whatsoever, but it is what it is, and that might be something that we have to contend with as well. So when we think about how best to minimize the fixture congestion, if we are going to take every game seriously and every competition seriously, as Mikel Arteta says, then these next games that we have in the Champions League group stage, for want of a better way of putting it, are really important. But it does feel like, based on the opposition that we've had so far, like our most difficult games are behind us. Well,
I was just going to make that point, because obviously Inter and Atalanta, we played them both away from home. They're both flying in this tournament. Inter, 4 wins from 5. They haven't conceded a goal. Atalanta obviously have conceded 1 goal. So we weren't playing mugs. And I think we also got a bit unlucky as well with how those fixtures were placed in our overall fixture list. But look, we're kind of past that now. And I think all eyes need to be on the future. Hopefully we can be excited about it heading into Christmas. That's for sure. I'm feeling good about Arsenal now.
For me, this what we've seen, and I know it's only 2 games, not only 2 games, but I think the last 2 games that we have seen, to me, are much more representative of what I think this Arsenal team is and capable of, rather than the sort of hit and miss, up and down Arsenal that we've seen in the opening part of the season. And look, again, without belaboring the point, there are many reasons for that, with suspensions and red cards and injuries and all of those things, right? I don't want to go over and over that again, but I think I could see people wondering, have we fallen off? Have we really gone off a cliff a bit here? Whereas I always felt that the team was capable of much better. And to go out and prove that against Forest, to completely control that game, win it 3-0, nice and comfortable, and then go score 5 goals away from home in Europe against a decent team. This is what I think this Arsenal team is capable of. And it's much more representative of the talent and the quality that we have than what we have seen up until this point.
Yeah, agreed. I find it very difficult to disagree with that. And also, when the fixture list may have been a bit unkind to us before, I think over the next 6 weeks or so, do we stay in London for the next 13 games now? Or something
I don't think it's quite. Like I don't think we go outside of London until late or early January when we go to Brighton. So it's not even that far.
So there you go. That's a short train ride away. So we need to make the most of this because it's a very mentally and physically demanding time of the year. Always the Christmas period is terrible. But if we can use that to our advantage as well, let's do it. But yeah, this needs to be the start of something, and I hope that it is.
Yeah. All right. Well, look, I better leave it there, Phil, because I don't know how much more my voice can take. But as ever,
I'm amazed we've got this far.
Yeah. You've been watching me mute and cough and drink water here while we've been recording this. So it's been a struggle, but God damn it, was it worth it? And it was an amazing night and an amazing result. So thank you for helping me re-enjoy what was a great win. As ever, Phil, thanks very much.
My pleasure. Going down a Lemsip.
Thank you very much indeed to Phil. You can find him in all the usual social media places. Pick your favorite. Whatever flavor you prefer, you'll find some Phil Costa right there. Before we go today, I do have to give you the winners of our competition from last week. I interviewed Miguel Delaney about his book, States of Play, and I asked you a question about our ownership. The answer, of course, was KSE and not KFC. I think pretty much everybody got that right, apart from that one guy who just couldn't help himself. He had to say KFC. I respect it. I respect that hustle. Anyway, the random number generator has done its thing, and the winners of the books are Noah Svensson. Well done to you. And also Matthew Kenna. So well done to you, guys. I will be in touch with you and we will get the books sent out to you as quickly as we can. The publishers will send those out directly to you. But I'll be in touch, as I said, to get your details. And finally, because tomorrow is Black Friday, and Black Friday is just a big load of old bullshit to make you spend money you don't really need to spend, giving you discounts on stuff that they put the price up 3 months ago and then they lower it and tell you it's cheaper. It's a big load of fucking bullshit swizzery. But you could spend money on a Goodly Morning mug and help a really good cause. Actually help 2 really good causes. We don't have a Black Friday discount. What we do have is a commitment to give every single penny that we generate from those mugs to Oscar's Kids and children's hospices across London, 2 charities that do amazing work for kids and for their families. You will find the link to the Goodly Morning mugs in the show notes. So if you fancy getting one of those mugs and helping those great causes, thank you very much. It would be greatly appreciated. So I'm going to leave it there. I know this is late getting out, so I'm going to get it out to everybody. There's no end bit at the end of this week's podcast because I just need to get it out into the ether for people to listen to. I hope you have enjoyed the show. You can join us for more tomorrow over on Patreon. We will be looking ahead to the game against West Ham on Saturday. You can join myself and Lewis there. For just $6 a month, you can get instant access to everything that we do on Patreon. And if you'd like to sign up, it is patreon.com/Arseblog. That's patreon.com/Arseblog. For now, I'm going to go maybe just daydream a bit more about some pastel de nata. God, those things are good. And I'll catch you on the next one. Until then, cheers. Bye-bye.